While Karl was busy with the north side of the city, the rest of the Darklight host had mobilized to help the survivors in what everyone was calling the safe zone, closest to the guild house. That was where all the mythic warriors had arrived from, and with the gargoyles on guard, nothing dangerous could get close to the survivors who had gathered in and around the yard for the healing totem pulses. The kitchens were working overtime, and they had recruited all the kitchens of the Alliance to help them as well. Drod might have lost a huge portion of their population, but there were tens of thousands of people crowded into the streets near the Frostfire gates, and more were arriving by the minute. All of them needed medical attention, most of them would need food, and over the next few days the situation would only get more dire, unless there was an organized effort to set up some sort of relief stations. The same was true down by the docks, where warehouses had been opened to run a barbecue and soup kitchen run by whoever was in good enough shape to help. With the help of the reinforcements from Xylaz, that was a rapidly increasing number. They had worked hard to get enough kills to pay off the healing totems that Karl had been handing out, and from what Tessa could tell, the guild wouldn't actually end up owing too much money. Many of the warriors hadn't gotten nearly enough kills to pay off the totem, so they had gathered corpses from their guild alliance members, and that had greatly reduced the number of cash payments that they were expected to make. It didn't decrease her confusion when the first few mythic warriors arrived at the guild house and Tion couldn't properly relay the issue to her. Though, the fox forgot that he could send guild messages, so he had been trying to pantomime the explanation until Thor came over and took pity on him. The influence of the Red Dragon had let her know that something was happening as soon as the attack started. But she was in the dungeon with Naksha and a group from the Alliance. So, they couldn't come over until they were finished, and by then things were already in chaos. The Red Dragon was pleased with the response, but the actual battle was well beyond her level, so she was left to tend to refugees while Naksha did her best to channel death energies for advancement while helping with the healing. And there was an abundance of death energy. The frogs might only have had simple skills, but their vital energy was strong, and that translated to strong doses of death energy when they were slain, which hung over the city like an invisible miasma. Granted, she wasn't the only one who wanted a share, but it was a most excellent opportunity. Thor, what is Karl up to? I thought that he would be back by now, Tessa asked. He's on the other side of the river helping dig people out from the rubble. They're all being sent this way because there is nothing left over there. But he's going to be distracted for a while with our new brother, Thor explained. New brother? Don't tell me that Karl tamed one of the frogs. That will definitely cause trauma to the residents of Drod. Thor smiled and shook his head. No, he found a baby turtle. It's a good brother, I think. Oh? What sort of powers does it have? Tessa asked. Thor shrugged. It has something called implacable, where it can't be confused or put to sleep, but I don't know what other skills it has. That didn't sound too terribly impressive to Tessa, but she would take Thor's word on the fact that it was actually a strong magical beast. Karl wouldn't have picked it if it wasn't, and his skills would make it formidable as long as it had the ability to grow to match his rank. Matron Blackclaw came out just then, looking haggard and exhausted. I've accounted for all my kids. 2 are with Sapphire, but all are alive. We've got another 1,000 liters of rice and beans cooked now, 8 bulk pots full. If you can help us bring them out, I would appreciate it. She began. Tessa nodded. We've got plenty of helping hands. How are things inside the caves? Good for the moment, but we've closed the doors to the workshop, so most of the city hasn't realized that the caves exist yet. Once they do, I suspect that we're going to have countless requests for temporary lodging. She explained. The number of houses and businesses lost during the battle would make it impossible to get everyone settled easily. There were matters of succession, inheritances, property with no clear owner, and tenants displaced from rented housing. Fortunately, large portions of the sprawl were Drod City housing projects, and everyone knew who was in charge of rebuilding them. Assuming that Lord Drod was alive and well. He hadn't been seen on this side of the city since the start of the battle, but he was strong enough that he should have been all right unless he got ambushed by a stronger immortal rank being. The governor was all right. They knew that much because he was with Sapphire right now, and the dragon had been keeping everyone updated on her situation. Hey, you 6. Come give us a hand with the next batch of food. The orphanage matron has prepared dinner. Tessa called, bringing a group of wrath demons running in her direction. Just head into the workshop there, and Matron Blackclaw will show you where the cauldrons are. She's got more than enough for everyone nearby, and we will make more as soon as these pots are empty. Tessa directed. That was good enough for the demons. If there was food now and a promise of food later, then there was no need to fight over it or try to hoard it. Not that they were likely to be successful at taking and hiding anything from the Darklight host. The guild was simply terrifying in their abilities, and those mythic gargoyles watched your every move like you were a potential threat. I can help with this, Leo suddenly announced, startling everyone. As Carl carefully cleared the rubble of a destroyed apartment building, the newborn turtle didn't leave his space. He simply waved his flipper, and all the broken bricks lifted off the pile and moved to the side. Underneath was another cellar stairwell, the standard hiding spot of the Redwood Sprawls residence. This one was also filled with terrified demons, but they also recognized Carl as soon as they saw him. Oh, you're the healing tree's friend. Thank you for the rescue. I take it that we can come out now? One of the demons asked. You can. The attackers are all gone, except the ones hiding in the ruins. Just make your way toward our guild house, and you'll find more help, Carl recited, using his standard response for those looking for assistance. Thank you, guild leader. We will check a few more homes, in case our friends are still nearby.
Carl nodded.
He was using thermal vision and soul sight to spot hidden people, so he wasn't likely to miss many, even if he couldn't smell or hear them. But the more, the merrier when it came to looking for survivors. Carl was clearing buildings when he noticed a small group of mythic rank auras in front of him. They were too small to be frogs, so they were most likely from one of the other portals. The problem was, he didn't know whether they were hostile or not. So, he knocked on the wall of the collapsed building that they were hiding in, and tried conversation first. Are you all right in there? We have aid stations set up for the wounded. He tried. If they were going to pretend that they were locals who had been injured or trapped in the invasion, this was their best chance. But it was a few seconds before anyone answered. We don't speak much demon. Do you speak serpent? One of them asked in the serpent tongue. Definitely not locals, if they didn't have the system translating for them at mythic rank. Remy came out and poked her head through the remains of the door. I speak serpent. Did you come here through one of the portals? We're not going to attack you for ending up here, she offered. A small lizard-folk woman came forward in what looked like a defensive position, trying to block her group from Carl while talking to Remy. We did. We're not runaways, I swear. The portal just opened and we fell through. She pleaded. This city doesn't keep lizard-folk as slaves. As long as you're here, you're free people, no matter what your rank. Well, the very weakest aren't allowed in the city without paying, but there are no immortals in this place. Remy offered. No immortals? Like none on the whole world? Are we in the mortal realms? Or is this a farm planet? This is the mortal realm, and there are immortals plus a supreme ranked guardian on the planet. I just meant that there are none in the city right now, and they don't bother us. The lizard-folk woman moved further into the light, and Carl noticed that there was a collar around her neck with a number on it. Slave collar marks Unit 184532105 as property of Ublek, Void Tier Immortal. Please return to owner if found. Carl tried not to laugh at the lost pet type warning tag on the item, which was an immortal rank binding collar. The wearer wouldn't be able to disobey orders from the controller of the item, and the item could be used to shock or even kill them at will. Truly nefarious in practice. How about I remove those for you? I will keep the collars as compensation for my work, Carl suggested. I don't think that's possible. If you try to force them off, we will die. The lizard-folk woman panicked. Carl looked it over again. No, it's fine. My technique will remove them without harming the wearer. Remy moved right next to the woman's neck and inspected the collar, then nodded in agreement. I just need to cut the needles or block them with a plate, and then Carl can remove it. There were poison injectors on the inside of the collar, which would plunge into the skin and deliver an unknown toxin if the collar was opened. It was a physical device, not magical, so it should activate even if Carl nullified the spell, locking it to their necks. One of the others stood, an older woman, with her leathery skin wrinkled by years of hardship. If it works on me, you all can do it too. If it doesn't, then I die free. What more could we ask for? The old woman insisted. Remy dug through her stuff and found a thin sheet of immortal rank metal that she could stick between collar and skin, and then gave Carl the thumbs up. Nullify made the gems on the collar go dim, and Remy carefully clicked the latch open to remove the offensive item. The needles clanged into the metal plate with a solid impact that sprayed toxin. But cleanse took care of that, and the collar was tossed into Remy's space for safekeeping, which gave her a great idea. Next time, she wouldn't open it, just take it. Once it was deactivated, it was freely removed, and it was only the physical opening that made the needles poke the skin. If she took the item without activating it, she could study the toxin they used and work on a proper antidote. That would likely sell very well. Carl nullified the next one as soon as Remy had the plate in place, and the collar vanished without the impact of needles on metal. Keep coming forward, we will remove them all, and then you can join the refugees on the other side of the city for dinner. How do you feel about rice and beans? She asked. Dragon cleric food? That's good stuff. Slave pens with a dragon cleric always. Eat well. Way better than the rest of us. But Master Oobleck usually kills them when it finds out they're clerics. Once Carl had the whole group freed, he found that they were unwilling to go anywhere alone. The thought of being alone among strangers terrified them, and they couldn't speak to the locals. But they were also mythic ranked, which made them stand out without the ability to defend themselves. Something about the immortal realm must force their bodies to advance because they were obviously not trained. But Carl wasn't sure how to ask. Remy, on the other hand, had no issues asking personal questions. I am an alchemist, and I would really like to know how you got so strong without any magic or physical training. Can I examine you? She asked. The old woman laughed and took a small vial from the pocket of her tattered dress. This is the reason that we're all strong, but helpless. It's a potion to attune our bodies to the immortal realm so mana poisoning doesn't kill us. We're not actually strong, we just feel like it because we have adapted to being in a mana-rich world. Remy silently cheered as she examined the potion. Oh, I think that I can recreate this. This is a good thing. Here, let me buy it from you. Carl, pay the lady. Carl smirked and patted Remy on the head as the Naga got engrossed in analyzing the potion. He knew just how to pay the lizardfolk woman. Champion Carl offers knowledge, skill, healing totem. Will be transferred to the indomitable elder SSSSS Sasha. The elder looked confused. Then her eyes went vacant as she entered the class change menu. Ah, just as I had hoped. Let me explain for the others. This world has a system designed by the World Dragon that allows his followers and most of the other people of the world to more easily learn magic and defensive skills. What I did was to teach the elder a healing spell suitable to shamans. She seemed like the sort that would be suitable for shamanistic magic, and it appears that the system agreed. So, when she comes back, she will have some basic magic, and she will be able to defend herself, as well as understand the people of this world more easily. Carl explained. Remy repeated his words in Serpent because the others clearly didn't know half the words he used. But once they did understand, the level of excitement had them vibrating and hugging each other. So, you can make arena gladiators with a skill? That is remarkable. The gladiators have it so much easier than the rest of us. Could you please do it for the rest of us? I don't mind if it's just sandpit warriors. Your world is incredible, and we will fight to defend it when Oobleck comes back. Carl smiled. He wouldn't happen to be a large octopus, would he? The lizards all nodded. He was fighting earlier against a big gold dragon. From the chaos plane, Kara grumbled in discontent. The food that escaped. She really wanted to find out what that thing would taste like battered and fried. It was pretty good raw. Hawk concurred. We will see about getting you all combat skills later. First, you need to follow me back to my guild house so that nobody mistakes you for part of the invasion force. Carl explained. Anything that you need to prove our innocence, we will do it. Search us, torture us, Send in the mind flayers for interrogation. We can prove we're not here to harm anyone. The lizard folk woman insisted. From behind Carl, a deep voice laughed. Oh, you found some too, did you? I found some obsession demons in the same situation, but they've got slave collars on. Are they part of the bounty? A warrior asked. Carl shrugged. Bring them in alive and I'll count it. They're not technically part of the invading force, and they're not food like the frogs, but we will count them as rescues for credit. Good enough for me. I thought it was weird that they were showing as mythic auras, but didn't possess any of the physical strength that should come with the rank. I was going to bring them back to your guild house where all the politicians and dragon clerics are, but now that I know I can get a reward for them, I'll give them to you and go look for more. That made Carl laugh. I will keep notes of how many make it to me. Remy, please escort the ladies to us, and we will keep searching for survivors. Remy was happy to keep the curious new people company, and everyone in town knew who she was. Mostly because she had discreetly been paying people to do product testing for her once she had a working sample. You never knew if it was going to work properly on every species, so the less fortunate of Drod all knew that when Remy came by, there was a chance she would give you gold to test a new product. And if you were lucky, you might get gold plus a useful benefit that lasted more than a day or two, like her hair regrowth serum version 2. That version was targeted, so you could only regrow the hair that you wanted to get back, and not every hair that your body could possibly grow. A minor improvement. Carl moved toward the most recently rebuilt square, the apartment blocks that he had helped to rebuild, and tried not to fear the worst. They were among the most densely populated areas of the Redwood Sprawl, so there could be the highest rates of casualties there as well if the buildings had collapsed. His hopes were not high, but when Carl climbed over a pile of rubble that had been a large commercial building, he found the square in shambles, with pieces of frog corpses everywhere, but the buildings completely intact. Going by the blood spray, Ray had come through here before the damage had really spread. The apartment building still stood, and as Carl moved into the ruined market with his procession of rescues, cautious heads began to poke out of windows and doors, hoping for good news. Everyone, follow me if you need assistance. Everyone is gathering in the Stone Chapel district. He shouted, bringing hundreds more people out of hiding. The Darklight host came to save the sprawl? Praise the gods. One of the old demons was shouting, which brought everyone out into the streets, startling the group that was with Carl. Are your people famous? One of the lizard folk asked. Remy nodded happily. We do a lot of charity and outreach work, and we commissioned the building of this apartment complex. Most of the people in town know our guild, and the average power level in this city is much lower than your own. Although with the system in place, almost everyone has some level of combat skills. The demons that the other myth had brought all looked confused. The overseer of this mortal world allows you to learn combat skills? What if you try to overthrow them? One of the obsession demons asked. Carl laughed. Do you think that anything we have could overthrow a supreme ranked chaos dragon? But she doesn't actually rule the planet. She just does her best to keep anyone else from bothering her. I don't know how they managed to break through today, but someone will pay dearly for that offense. The demon looked shocked. Lord Ublek has a supreme ranked master. What if he shows up here? He already did. Supreme Lady Matilda took the fight to the Chaos Plane, and from what I have gathered, she is in the process of turning him into calamari. The demon looked confused. What is a calamari? Chopped, breaded, and deep-fried octopus. The demons looked horrified, and the locals from the sprawl began to laugh. I see that they've truly met the Darklight host. Don't worry, foreigner. You'll get used to them if you spend some time in town. Nothing scares the Darklight host. If you can convince them to take you in, they might even be able to fix whatever is wrong with your system interface. One of the locals, Commander rank Incubus who worked at one of the casinos, informed them. System? The demon asked. Oh, we've got so much to teach you about. How do you feel about living in a world without immortals oppressing you? We can teach you to fight back and use numbers to overcome their power advantage. Your former master, Ublek, ran away to keep from becoming part of the menu today. If he dares to come back, we will do it again. Carl suggested. The lizard folk shamaness frowned. What sort of creature could even dare to eat a cephalopod? Carl shrugged. Well, I would. Then there is the chaos dragon, the badger, most of the other dragons and dragonkin. Probably the wrath demons too. Even if it's super spicy or tough to chew, they're always up for a challenge. The lizard folk giggled. That was true. The wrath demons that the immortals kept for the arena were always causing trouble. Some of them even needed to be kept chained when not in the fighting ring so that they didn't attack the overseers. A moment later, the dark elven kings appeared with a whole line of obsession demons and wolves. All of them were wearing the same slave collars, but these were now attached to an elven steel chain and marched along by the two epic golems. Are you taking prisoners now? Carl asked as they approached. Well, they're not edible, so we didn't kill them, but they're from the invasion location. Can we keep them? The elf asked hopefully. Carl knew that the dark elves had even worse intentions for prisoners than Ray usually did, so he just shook his head. Hand them over and I will explain the situation. Finish the cleanup, and then you can meet with Lady Ray for the final tally. The dark elven kings handed over the chains, while the new prisoners stared at Carl in horror. He didn't feel like an immortal, but his aura was terrifying. If I remove the chains and collars, can I trust everyone to behave? Carl asked. One of the wolves came to bump up against his leg, and Carl laughed. They weren't a divine beast species, just the immortal realm's equivalent of timber wolves. But the immortals had still collared them to keep them from advancing or learning skills. However, in the presence of a beast master, they were just animals. He needed to introduce them to Lotus. Carl nullified all the collars on the wolves, and Remy quickly moved them all to her space, while the collared demons watched in awe. That's all it takes? How do you even do that? They're made by the immortals, one of the demons asked. Carl shrugged. It's one of my many skills. Now, can I trust you all to behave? The demons nodded eagerly, and Tion laughed in his space. They're so excited to be free. I can't wait to see what we can train them to do. They look agile. Maybe we can have Sister Ray train them into new rogues? That might just traumatize them even further. But it would be suitable for most of them once Carl found out what their obsessions were. They all seemed to come from the same pale violet-skinned lineage with curled ram horns. So they might share similar obsessions. However, if they were being bred by immortal octopus monsters, there might be something strange about their lineage as well. Most domesticated species were chosen for desirable traits, and none of these showed the rebellious nature of someone who had been captured as an adult. Should have. So they were likely born in the immortal realm and not brought there after a raid like today's attack on Drod. One after another, they dropped to their knees in the rubble. If you will free us, we swear to follow you faithfully, Lord Carl. They spoke in unison. Damn it, I should have come back to make them do that. Karak implant. But she couldn't leave yet. The supreme ranked invader had been chopped into seafood snack packs by Matilda, and the supreme lady was napping while she recovered from her wounds and absorbed the life energy of her fallen foe. If Kara was right, there was a good chance that the supreme lady was about to advance and become a legend. Matilda was indeed in the process of advancement, but with that advancement came a suppression of her powers. Her body was remaking itself as it pushed toward the borders of divinity, and that wasn't a casual process that could be done while she went about her daily activities. Unfortunately for everyone else, that meant that she couldn't suppress the attacks from the immortal realm while she advanced. The best that she could do was to warn Kara where they were going to be, and have the Badger warp space in the Chaos Plane to allow her to nullify the attempts without moving. That would keep most of them shut, but if a strong enough immortal or a supreme ranked being attacked while Matilda was advancing, they would be let loose on the world without any defenses. Kara rather enjoyed this job. It was a bit like playing whack-a-mole, as the disturbances targeting the planet would pop up in the Chaos Realm like a bump on reality, and she could just smack them with Nullify. Matilda felt the same way when she first started doing it, but now it was more of a background process in her mind, an automatic response born of millennia of practice. When her advancement started, it was one of the last things that she lost the ability to do, but at the moment it was one of the most important. Many creatures would sense her advancement, even though she was in the Chaos Plane, and those who had felt her disrupting their invasion or probing spells before would know that her world was ripe for a hit-and-run invasion. Most would not be brave enough to try, as they would naturally fear her retribution once she had finished the advancement to legendary status. But there were always a few, ones who either didn't know better, who thought that they could sneak through without being detected, or who simply held a grudge against the ancient dragon. If they knew that she was actually advancing to legendary status while perfectly healthy and not while incapacitated from her fight, they might not be as brave. But few of them could sense that much through the distortions caused by the Chaos Plane. For those who didn't understand the nature of chaos, the space was a complete enigma, where nothing made sense and all of the rules were wrong. Carl, you need to finish what you're doing, and then I need you to go to a place and slap someone. Kara instructed. Well, that sounds fun. Who are we slapping? I'm good at slapping. Leo cheered. Indeed, with the flippers of a giant turtle, he was exceptionally skilled at slapping. And though he was a newborn, his strength was immense. Carl sighed and turned to the new arrivals. It seems that I am needed elsewhere, to deal with more of these impertinent invaders. However, as you have all sworn to follow me, I will offer you all the opportunity of a lifetime. If you wish to learn to fight or heal, I will grant you that ability, and you can accompany me to repel the next group of invaders from the immortal realms. The wolves howled enthusiastically. They had no idea what he was talking about, but he was excited, so they were excited. The demons and lizards chuckled at the wolves. At least the beasts could fight on their own. The lizard folk were the first to respond. We will fight at your side. If you can teach us what you taught our elder, we will follow you anywhere. Champion Carl offers knowledge, skill, healing totem. The lizard folk all froze as they were pulled into the system interface to do their initial class selections, and Carl got to work removing the last of the slave collars from the remainder of the accidentally transported visitors. Does anyone have a preference? If you want to live in peace, I will have someone escort you to the guild house, and you can help the kitchens prepare meals for the homeless. He offered. The obsession demons shook their heads. A lifetime of helplessness was the last thing that they wanted. They had already experienced that nightmare, and never wanted to return. There are hunters in our world. They use the dogs to track down runaways. Can you make us someone like them? Trained to fight and track down enemies? We will gladly help you eliminate the allies of the cephalopods from your world. One of the women suggested. Carl nodded. I can do that. If you want to be a hunter, pick one of the wolves, and if it likes you, then it can be your partner. There were more demons than beasts, but the wolves were quickly chosen without any fights. All right, I will start the process, and then you will see an illusion that will tell you all about your new skills. Carl instructed. Chosen partner activated. Carl let the beasts choose their partners, and watched shock bloom on the demons' faces when the bond formed. Then, before the class selection could start, he activated evolution, and forced all of the wolves to evolve into an advanced bestial state. It might make it nearly impossible for the beasts to evolve naturally later, but they were already mythic. What harm could it do, really? As the wolves evolved, the class selections activated and the demons were pulled into the system interface. Now, while they're busy, let's see about the rest of you. Do you want to be mages, warriors, or agile rogue types? He asked. Is that how it works? We get a choice. One of the men asked, confused. Sort of. If you have the affinity, you can. If not, you get to be a warrior. Nearly. Everyone can be a warrior if they try. That made Remy laugh. Yes, nearly everyone can be a warrior. The basic qualifications were breathing or otherwise not dead. Because even some things that weren't breathing could be warriors. Agility is the specialty of our species. But we want vengeance for our captured kin. Do you have something for that? Carl gave them a vicious smile. Actually, I do. Champion Carl offers knowledge, skill, shadow step. Champion Carl offers knowledge, skill, perfect camouflage. The last of the new arrivals faded into the class selection screens while the locals stared at Carl in awe. That skill is just unfair. Every time I hear about how awesome it is, I get envious. But now that I've seen it myself, it's even more incredible than they said it was. One of the locals sighed. Carl laughed and patted the Orcish warrior on the shoulder. Champion Carl offers knowledge, skill, smite. The orc laughed and pulled Carl into a hug, then went to sit before going to the class selection screen and coming back a second later as a crusader. The new arrivals needed much more time, as they had no idea what the system was or how it worked. So, they inspected everything in the class options before returning their attention to the ruined city. Shamans, beast rangers, and assassins. Those were the three classes for the rescued slaves, which left Carl just one more task. Branch Leader Carl invites you to the Darklight Host Guild. Accept? Carl, you really need to get going. There are a lot of monsters coming through this portal. Kara reminded him. Give me 30 seconds. I'm recruiting more people. Make it snappy, there is calamari, and I want it. Carl rolled his eyes at the stubborn badger, but kept waiting for the last of his recruits to be ready. This battle is certain to be rough on all of you. You have new skills and no training, but I will give you weapons and we are going to fight against invading cephalopods. I believe that it's the same group that invaded this city, but I can't confirm that yet. The goal is to eliminate them and close the portals they are using to invade this world. Ready or not, it is time. We can't delay any longer, he declared. From the guild storage, he grabbed a whole pile of totem-ranked spears, swords, maces, and daggers. Grab a weapon that appeals to you. If you think you can use two at once, go ahead. That's common for assassins. You have 10 seconds to grab a weapon, and then we're leaving, Carl informed them. It was better not to give them time to second-guess their choices. Then he opened a portal to the location that Kara had given him. The drain was immense, indicating that it was not on the same continent. But nothing could have prepared Carl for the scene in front of him. His portal had opened to a Drake Rider's shrine, and the sky was filled with the two-legged reptiles, while another enormous army of frogs flooded the ground, killing everything that moved in the city. It's the frogs again. Take them out. Work together or in teams. Shamans, you are the only healers. Don't slack on your duties to your comrades. Everyone else, protect the healers and don't get out of their sight. I will be going up, Carl ordered as he led the way through the portal. The sight of the frogs steeled the determination of the demons and lizard folk. Those evil things had terrorized them their whole lives. But now they had the power to fight back for the first time. The freshly evolved wolves had a particular hate for the slimy amphibians, and elemental attacks crackled from them as they hurtled their bodies into combat. The beast rangers buffed their companions, and then most of them panicked and used their regeneration abilities to heal even the most minor of injuries on the wolves. The shamans had their healing totems out, but nobody had any combat experience or training. All they could do was rely on the system and hope that they didn't die. At least they had some basic knowledge granted by their skills, and the assassins had a combat style type innate skill. But what Carl quickly realized was that they had no skill points. They had the few initial skills that the class granted and no more. They would have to work and survive if they were going to get enough skill points to have a full array of abilities. Overhead, the Drakes were fighting against a group of mythic rank octopus monsters, but they only had 2 totems and a bunch of overlords. Carl summoned his golems to protect the others, then activated Avatar and flew up to join the battle. Keep your distance, I will hold them in place, he ordered. The octopus monsters turned an annoyed red color as Carl doused them in ghost fire, but the attitude changed immediately when they realized that it was burning their souls and not just their bodies. Carl charged right into close combat with the burning monsters, and felt his scales shred as tentacles wrapped around him. Then he flicked his foreleg up, bringing a soft head in range of his jaws. Draconic teeth sunk deep into the octopus, and ghost fire scorched flesh as the creature realized its mistake. You couldn't attack the front of a dragon like that. It didn't need to use its limbs to inflict massive damage. Then, Carl coated himself in Disintegrate and began to pulse Void Blast, tearing the tentacles apart as the attacker howled in anguish. The other 2 came to its rescue, but their attacks couldn't get through Eternal Lightning quickly enough, and Carl was tearing the hapless creature apart. They're good when roasted. Carl laughed before tossing the corpse of the first octopus into Hawk's space. The bird was still in Drod, but with the portal open, he had no problem retrieving his bounty. Are we going there? Should I get the Dana mage? Ray asked. Do you think she would hurt me for asking her to look after Drod and the payments for frog bounties? Carl asked. 100% yes. Then Thor is responsible for payments. Ray and Hawk can come here to hunt more frogs. Remy, help with the survivors. Maybe go find Lotus, the locals know. The healing tree. Rack, bring Dana with you, and have her stay near my recruits. They have 0 combat experience. World Dragon, thank you for the rescue. A familiar voice gasped as the 2 mythic attackers backed away, and the Drake riders advanced around Carl. Kenichi, are you suicidal? Well, at least I know where the attack is now. I brought a load of mythic assistants to help save your city. But there are multiple attacks in the Dragon Isles, and most of my people are busy. Carl replied as he hurled Ghostfire fireballs at his opponents. It might be suicidal, but the Drake Riders only have us 2 totems. There are no more myths available on this continent, and the old black dragon is busy in his own nation, dealing with an attack there. Thor, ask Kara where all the successful attacks are and let the other myths know that we will pay bounties for frogs at all of them. Just have someone open the portals. I think Remy can do it. Carl honestly couldn't remember who was compatible with the portal spell. Other than that, it wasn't Ray. Carl didn't have time to follow up on the situation, as the 2 heavily wounded cephalopods opened another portal and called for reinforcements. What they got was their 7-armed and irate immortal ranked boss. Welcome back. I am going to eat you this time. Deep fried for sure.
Karl greetet Oobleck.
You stole my slaves. The immortal raged. You weren't even using them, so I'm not paying damages. Aren't they cute? I taught them to fight, and now they're harvesting frogs for me. The creature turned an enraged purple, and Carl laughed as Kenichi and the other Drake riders carefully backed away. The monster man was insane, taunting an immortal. But when Carl lashed out with immortal ranked dark fire, the 3 octopus creatures howled in pain and immediately tried to flee from the charging dragon. Carl didn't go straight for the immortal. He banked at the last second and drove all 4 sets of claws into the most wounded, then fired Void Blast at it from the inside. Black lines spread down all the creature's tentacles as its nervous system disintegrated, and it fell limp in Carl's embrace. That's 1 more down. Better think fast, or I'll be finished before you fight back. Carl tossed the body into his mouth, then transferred it into Kara's space so that it looked like he swallowed the creature whole. A barrage of water element blasts shattered Carl's scales, sending flakes of gold and splatters of black blood everywhere. The wounds began to heal instantly, but the barrage continued as Carl raced through the sky toward the immortal. The remaining mythic octopus saw that as its opportunity, but it hadn't realized that Carl was not the only threat. From above, Hawk dive bombed the target, using Rend as an impact shield, before tearing into it with flaming claws in his full dark flame phoenix glory. Damn you, dragon. How did you get the Phoenix clan on your side? Oobleck raged. We're old friends. Known him all his life. Are you gonna run away again? Maybe go tell your mommy that the mean dragon is picking on you? Carl saw the octopus look toward an open portal and quickly nullified it, closing the most direct route back home for the immortal. Oh, we can't make it that easy for you. I'm on to your tricks, cowardly octopus. Carl lashed out with an immortal rank Void Blast as a bubble of water formed around him, then continued his barrage of dark fire. Rampage was cutting down on the benefits of Oobleck's damage reduction, and Carl saw the moment that the octopus realized what was going on. Oh, you're a smart one, aren't you? Yes. The more that my friends kill, the more damage you take. Brilliant, isn't it? But you can't touch them until you finish with me. From not far away, where Kenichi was helping Hawk tear apart the mythic octopus, the Drake Riders Guild messages were going insane. Why is the dragon taunting the immortal? That's beyond psychological warfare. If he starts to lose, we need to be ready to open portals and flee. Kenichi smiled at the horrified messages. Relax, trash talk is part of his combat strategy. If it's focused on him, he doesn't need to burn energy stopping it from bombarding us. If it only held him off and focused on us, it would destroy the city in minutes. It really wasn't all that deep. Karl had just inherited Kara's love of trolling her enemies. The look of absolute rage on Oobleck's skin was worth the extra effort it took to hurl insults. Unfortunately, as Karl was going all in on offense, using immortal rank attack skills, his barriers shattered with every hit, and there was nearly as much dragon blood as octopus blood raining down on the dragon rider's homeland. You can't keep this up forever, dragon. Though, I really can. I am eternal, I will never tire. I will never sleep. Today is your doom.
Ray mentally cheered for Karl.
He was finally learning the proper application of a dramatic speech. And he didn't stop fighting to monologue. For effort. I have defeated the Dark Elven Kings 3 battles in a row. Do you have faster killers? Ray taunted Karl, wondering if he was holding back on her. Karl smirked and swapped the Dark Elven Kings for a pair of Oathbreaker demons. The epic Great Obsession demons dealt area damage with every strike, and they were insanely fast, with Shadow Step as part of their basic skills. Perfectly suited to a battle of this nature. The frogs began to explode from the secondary damage all around the demons, which made the recruits scream in horror until they realized that these new demons were also on their team. Dana sighed as she realized what Karl had done, but continued to give orders and combat hints to keep the group alive and fighting. She didn't know where Karl had managed to find dozens of completely clueless myths, or if he had some sort of mind control ability that made them forget how to fight, but they definitely needed a babysitter. The battle between Karl and Oobleck had turned into an epic slugfest, with the two mighty combatants completely giving up on tactics and simply hurling attacks at each other as fast as they could channel mana. It was a brilliant learning experience for Karl, as the Immortal had far superior mana control to him, despite his own progression on the fundamental rule of
Mana manipulation.
So far, he had mostly learned the different ways that it could be used to create effects, but today Karl was learning how to more efficiently use mana in combat, and how to form skills faster with less wasted energy. Oobleck knew that there was something very wrong with this fight. Even with the mana pylon active, the World Dragon should not have this much mana. It was as if he was drawing on an inexhaustible well, and his body was barely fluctuating with the energy usage. But what he couldn't know was that it was the effect of the Amulet of Destruction that was upgrading the skill to Immortal rank, so Karl was only actually activating mythic attacks, which cost much less mana. Skill Master Activation. Void Blast. Chaos Blast. Chaos Blast Immortal rank, Epic grade skill. The fundamental rule of chaos. Destabilizes a region in space. Karl smirked at the frustrated cephalopod as Kara went insane in his mind, celebrating the activation of a new and improved skill that she could use. Chaos Blast had no visible form. It simply burst into existence, and Oobleck's tentacles seemed to bulge and flex before blood sprayed from the surface, which appeared to have been shredded. "Damn you!" he raged, as Karl continued to pelt him with attacks that he simply couldn't block. Chaos Blast effectively ignored the protective spells on his skin, and passed through to tear him apart from the inside and out simultaneously. Ray was a big fan. Was almost as good as Blood Destruction. Then Karl broke out his trump card. Mana Suppression formed all over the aerial battlefield, and Oobleck found that his abilities now cost dozens of times more energy than usual to initiate. Karl felt the spell shatter, broken by the Immortal's pure energy, but Oobleck was panting with exertion. He wouldn't fall for that trick twice, and he had only allowed it to form because he didn't understand how it could be harmful without targeting him. But the advantage was firmly with Karl's team, and Hawk was pushing for complete dominance. The bird had cast Elemental's Wrath on all the wolves and the spectral knights, and the extra fire damage was devastating against the frogs. The numbers didn't even support the invaders anymore, as Ray was raising the fallen frogs which had died to Blood Destruction as blood golems, and they were forming a small army of beasts under the spider's control. The Drake Rider's home city was being cleared at a walking pace, and the shamans had learned how to close the portals. It might be a class skill or someone might have gotten a reward, but the number of portals was dropping fast. Karl pressed the advantage, pelting Oobleck with immortal-ranked chaos blasts. Black blood rained down on the city, and Karl was certain that victory was at hand. Then, his opponent simply vanished along with the remaining portals. All that was left was an army of enraged frogs and destruction. Son of a bitch. He managed to escape twice.
Karl cursed.
Kenichi flew over to him, inspecting the damaged scales on Karl's avatar form. Karl, are you all right? Just annoyed that it got away. That's the second time today. The Drake Rider laughed. You don't get to be an old immortal without having a trick or two up your sleeves. If he didn't have a way to escape from nearly any situation, he wouldn't have risked coming here in the first place. Karl winked at the Drake Rider. See, this is why you get to be in charge of things. You've got the wisdom. Go check on what is left of your city. My people will keep working until the frogs are gone. Honestly, Karl needed time to recover. He hurt everywhere, and some of the wounds on his body were slow to close, even with the advantages of the Chaos Dragon Constitution and all of his healing skills. Even when Tion cast multiple heals on him, it hardly helped. It has to be something that reduces healing effects. Try landing and casting Nullify and Cleanse. Tion suggested. Karl cast both, and his healing slowly increased, but still not anywhere near its full capacity. It had to be the effect of a fundamental rule that Karl simply didn't know how to overpower. Over the next few minutes, the healing slowly increased, and Karl transformed back into his more comfortable cat demon beast form. The battle was essentially over, and Ray was in a good mood, as the pair of Oathbreakers had actually managed to kill more frogs than she did. That didn't happen often, and it didn't count her supporters, but it was still a great challenge. Are you almost done there? I have a whole list of things for you to do. Kara complained. We're just dealing with some final frogs. There are only 2 totems in this whole country. Karl reminded her. Well, hurry it up. You've got 4 minutes before one opens at the academy. You all heard the lady. Let's finish this up and go play with my baby rogue. Ray insisted. Then she laughed. Between her and Oathbreaker, there weren't many frogs left to kill. With Karl running off the boss and forcing it to close the portal so he didn't follow it, the battle here was much easier than the one in Drod. Will you be remaining here to assist in the cleanup, Lord Karl? We could use the help. Kenichi asked as Karl waited for his injuries to heal so he could continue to fight. Karl shook his head. We need to keep going. There are more attacks ongoing and about to start. If we don't keep up with them, we will never manage to save the continent. They're clear, Ray announced. Go to the academy. If you hurry, you can hide your baby rogue before the portal opens outside her window.
Kara instructed.
Karl opened a new portal directly to his old room in the academy, and Ray immediately shadow-stepped through. Nobody was allowed to terrorize Sybil but her. To say that Sybil was shocked to get sudden visitors was an understatement, but she had been training for just this moment. As soon as Rack appeared, she shadow-stepped behind her and went for the backstab attack. Unfortunately, her target was Ray. The spider simply transformed into her humanoid persona, grabbed the dagger, and then began to mercilessly tickle the commander rank rogue. Mercy, mercy. You win. It's good to see you again, Mistress Ray, Sybil pleaded. It's good to see you again as well, but we're here for business. There is an attack about to start on the academy, and we came here to intercept it, Ray explained. Then we should talk to the headmaster. He should be in front of the trial tower. The first-year students are doing an exam, and he's out front lending moral support or grading their exams, Sybil explained. We need to send someone to help the old black dragon in the Divine Beast Nation, too. He's losing his fight, Kara added.
Dana frowned.
You could have mentioned that earlier. I will go. Just tell me exactly where he is. Kara relayed an image, and Dana opened a portal, then lashed out with her sword as a giant frog tried to jump through. Well, I got the right spot for sure. I will see you all soon. She laughed, then vanished through the portal. We can't send the Dana mage alone. Open another portal. Tion pleaded. All right, go take care of her and the old mythic dragon. And take Opal with you. I know she doesn't like to come outside, but it's important. Opal flickered with light in what Carl recognized as an affirmative confirmation. Then she began preparing spells. With the healing fluff and her improved illusions, they would make sure that the Dana mage was safe. Carl let the portal close behind them, and then led his army of recruits through to the academy grounds by the trial tower. Headmaster, get the students to a safe room. We are about to see an influx from the immortal realm. Most likely giant frogs at the mythic rank. Thousands of them. Carl announced the moment he arrived. For a second, everyone froze. Then there was shouting as orders were given, and the emergency alarms began to blare. That would send the students running to the secure areas, but there was no warning level that sent the strongest instructors inside. It was the job of the overlords on the staff to defend everyone, but today, there would not be much that they could do. How certain are we about the timing? The headmaster asked. 100%. Give or take 30 seconds. Damn. In the Chaos Realm, Kara laughed. There was no way that he could have any idea how bad things were about to get just from Carl's explanation. But she couldn't go anywhere. Lady Matilda was nearly finished her advancement, and she had hundreds more attempts to invade the planet to swat. These people were incredibly determined, and all the attacks were coming from the same artificial planet within the immortal plane. So, it should be entirely the adherents of one group who did not yet understand that their leader was dead. The first portal opened 5 seconds before Kara's estimated time of arrival, and a familiar head appeared. My friend Oobleck, it's good to see you again. Carl welcomed the octopus. You again. It's always you. The octopus complained, but he didn't stop the invasion. Dozens of mythic rank octopus monsters floated through the portal behind him, and then a few hundred giant crabs wearing armor plates over their shells. Oh, no more frogs? Well, that's a shame. The frogs are tasty. Now, should we do this here on the ground? Or should I fly up to meet you in the air? Carl asked. Oobleck glared at him, but flew up a few thousand additional meters to move their fight away from the invasion. I want a pet crab, Ray demanded. What do you even want a crab for? Carl asked as he shifted into the avatar of the world dragon. Crabs are weird. They're spiders with harder shells and pincers. Ray explained. Well, if you can keep one alive and tame it, you can try to keep it. I doubt that it will work, though, Carl informed her. Ray shrugged. If it worked, it worked. If not, she would eat it. It had better work, though. She wanted to put her baby rogue on a combat crab mount and give her a spear. Oobleck inspected Carl as he flew up to meet for the challenge. There was seriously something wrong with this creature. It was the avatar of the world dragon, but it wasn't a dragon at all. As far as he could tell, Carl was a demon who had gained the favor of the dragon pantheon. But he was also mythic ranked, with the ability to use immortal essence in his attacks. That shouldn't be possible. If you could channel the essence of immortality, the lowest of divine energies, you should automatically advance to the immortal rank and undergo tribulation. Somehow, he had granted himself an immortal realm epic grade body and immortal rank attacks of the chaos element, but tribulation did not come for him. It might be time to plead with a power higher than his own master to intervene. Mere demons should not be allowed to flaunt the fundamental rules like that. This time we finish things, Oobleck declared as he surged with power. The beast gods had answered his prayers to punish the cheating demon. A massive phantom creature formed behind the octopus, but Carl continued to stack spells, in preparation for the complete obliteration of the octopus. The phantom solidified into a massive cat, radiating divine energy. That was Carl's signal. There was no more time to delay, or he was toast. 100 prepared and held, chaos blasts, flew to Oobleck, and a bolt of holy energy lashed out from the cat's projection, striking Carl and causing a massive thunderstorm to form overhead, pelting the entire area with divine lightning. For a moment, the projection looked confused. Carl was scorched, and half his body was covered in black mist over missing scales. But even with tattered wings, he was floating in the air, alive. But on the other side of the battlefield, only a small central core of Oobleck remained, missing all its limbs and most of its body. To say that the immortal had survived was generous, but it could regenerate even this massive level of damage. However, what it could not do was contain or direct the attention of the divine being that it had called upon. The demigod-rank feline stepped out of its own projection and into the mortal realm. This world smelled awful, weak in mana and infested with dragons. But it had found a most curious target. Sure, it had only been a casual swipe to make the octopus stop bothering it, but this not a dragon had survived. Mortals simply didn't survive when a demigod slapped them with holy wrath. That was not how it worked. Their inability to survive even a casual swat was a theory that he had tested millions of times, while looking for a suitable prodigy among the newborns of his domain. But only once did he find a true immortal among them who could survive his attention. Behind the cat, a small black and white figure appeared, delivering the killing blow to the crippled immortal octopus, and ending Ublex millennia-long reign over his territory. The Supreme Lady is finished her advancement. She will stop the attacks from here on out, Kara explained. The cat turned, having heard her thoughts. A chaos badger? It asked, unsure what to make of this situation. Since when were badgers and dragons allies? They weren't even from the same pantheon, and most worlds would not have both of them running amok at the same time. Whatever. It didn't really matter, and he was more curious to see what happened if he hit that creature that wasn't actually a dragon again. Holy Smite lashed out, striking Karl straight in the chest, and sent him tumbling to the ground in the academy grounds. The shock of the impact, and the aftermath of the attack, leveled nearly every remaining building in the academy, leaving only the trial tower standing intact. Screams of terror and agony echoed through the area, and then from the demigod as vicious teeth bit into its ear. You like that? I'll bite your ears off.
Kara is native.
Damnable badger. The cat grumbled as it swatted at the tenacious creature. With its paw, holy claws raked across Kara's side, but she had been swatted into the air, and flew towards the horizon before she could get her one uninjured wing to slow her momentum. Ray turned her attention up, and the cat stared back. This world was strange. Why were followers of the beast gods angry at him for swatting a dragon? A mortal dragon at that. And now his ear hurt. He was going home. Screw this place and its crazy mortals. Panicked, Remy rushed to the academy to check on Karl, and found that he was collapsed in the ruins of the mage training building, still in avatar form, but 90% of his body was black mist. That was his regeneration attempting to rebuild the destroyed parts of his body, as the surviving portions of it were currently mostly legs and spine, with a damaged skull missing all its scales. But the Karl wasn't dead. Half a continent away, Dana felt pain surge through her body, as if her soul was being seared from the inside. But there was nothing here that could threaten her. She was fighting giant frogs, and they were no match for her blade skills. It had to be Karl in danger. But what could realistically threaten Karl? There simply weren't a lot of creatures that could overpower his team to the point that he would be in real danger. Now, he might be short on 2 members, but he still had Hawk, Ray, and Kara available, if Kara was finished with whatever she was doing in the Chaos Realm. Opal's illusionary domain hosted an upgraded army of hammer-wielding dwarves that were incredibly effective in combat, and the butterfly herself had landed on top of Tion, which made it look like the cat-sized fox had giant wings. I would make a cute fae. Tion agreed as he heard Dana's thoughts. The spells heal the body. The fluff heals the heart. Opal added. Dana sighed at the 2 oddballs that she had gotten as backup. Inside Opal's domain, everything worked in her favor, and with Tion's intervention, even the terrain adapted to hinder the army of frogs. But neither the butterfly nor the fox was capable of taking anything seriously. I mean, what danger are we actually in? Worst case scenario, we just go back and hide in our space. Opal suggested. Can you even get there from here? Dana asked. They were halfway across the continent. That was well beyond any sort of reasonable access range for their personal space. I can open a portal. Opal replied with a mental shrug. Tion nodded in agreement. Portals were the best way to get back to the Karl if he wandered away on them. It wasn't even an elemental magic, it was easy to use. Dana sighed as she realized that the beasts really didn't have any trouble simply running back home when they were in trouble. They didn't even need a portal large enough to move through, just enough to link the two locations so they could move into their space, the same trick that she could do with teleportation. Slowly, the pain in Dana's chest was fading, so she assumed that Carl was all right. The beasts certainly would have had some response if he were not all right, and they were still calmly talking about returning to their spaces if there was actual danger. Focus on getting us to the other side of the battlefield. The black dragon is holding the temple by himself. Dana instructed. Got it, boss lady. Tian agreed. He was using earth manipulation to fire stone bullets at the frogs, but when Dana said that they needed to hurry, he changed tactics and began to attack them from below, using spears of stone to impale them or drive the frogs into Opal's illusionary army. They could really use Thor here for the barrier spell. But the illusionary dwarves were doing well enough before they were destroyed by the frogs. However, Opal had a truly prodigious mana regeneration rate, and even when entire waves of her illusionary dwarves fell in combat, reality warp, let her bring them all back for a trivial amount of mana. Tian thought that the whole thing was hilarious because the frogs were stupid, and they didn't understand that there was a better way to deal with the illusions than to attack them head-on. So they kept getting speared, kept getting smashed with hammers, and the path to the Beast God Temple where the mythic Black Dragon was fighting rapidly cleared. Dana Mage, take your team and go to the big dragon. We will fight our way to you, Opal instructed. Will you be all right? Isolated out here? Dana asked. Yep, all good. We're just collecting frogs. All the frogs. They were going to have a mountain of them by the time that they were done, and with so much mythic-grade meat, there was no way that they couldn't push at least one of their carnivorous siblings up a noticeable step in power. Technically, the ones who ate meat were almost all mythic already, but still early mythic. That hardly counted. The only one who might like frog legs, but wasn't a mythic beast, was Remy. But she should advance soon. She was already powerful, she was just lagging behind a little bit for lack of opportunity. Stuffing herself full of good food might solve the problem. Tian certainly felt better when he had a full tummy. You seem distracted, young mage. The mythic dragon noted as Dana arrived next to him with her golems. The beasts over there share a mental link with me, and their distracted state keeps making me laugh. Dana explained. The dragon gave a rumbling laugh. Right, the soul bonding ceremony. I had forgotten about that, possibly out of desire to preserve my sanity after dealing with Matilda. The two did not slow their fight to chat, but Dana did have time to notice that there were two mythic-ranked octopus monsters on the ground, their souls completely stripped by the breath weapon of the black dragon. All the regeneration in the world didn't matter if there was no life left in the corpse. The same had happened to the frogs which had gotten too close to the temple, which had been defended by a group of totem-ranked warriors backed up by every cleric they could muster. It was a brutal siege tactic, but with enough healers, even a wall of totem-ranked beasts was enough to hold a position against the army of mythic frogs. At least for a little while. Once the barriers on the temple collapsed, they would have been finished without Dana's intervention. For the black dragon, that was an incredibly irritating thought. A temple full of intelligent magical and divine beasts should not be overrun by mindless wild animals, even if they were from the immortal realm. Carl lay perfectly still as his body began to reform out of the mist. Any attempt to move only slowed the process, but interestingly, he could still use skills and channel mana. Just as long as they didn't affect his body. He wasn't, as he was already low on mana. But when he sensed that one of the others was in danger, he would renew a buff on them, or grant them an eternal lightning barrier for a few moments. The time to regenerate an entire body was agonizingly slow, and Carl wondered if part of the issue was that his draconic body was so large. If it were just his usual form, would he have already coalesced? He had surely regenerated more than a demon body worth of dragon flesh so far. But thinking was about all that he could do, other than casually looking out for the golems, and making sure that Kara and Hawk didn't get themselves into too much trouble. However, one thing was clear. They were going to need a new academy, and possibly new cadets. Carl didn't know how secure those panic rooms were, but the scattered lightning and the impacts of the skills used in the admittedly brief battle between him and Oobleck had destroyed every tree for 100 kilometers. Only one building was still standing, and he had no way of telling if any of the teachers were still alive. There had been a barrier on them at the time of impact, he was reasonably certain. But that didn't mean much when it was raining divine lightning and mythic-ranked attacks. Carl had almost forgotten that everything in the Dragon Isles was made of incredibly durable materials, so casual attacks didn't cause much damage, and the backlash of larger attacks only took out a building or two. Even the trees and grass were more durable there. The standard lumber axe of the Golden Dragon Nation wouldn't even put a scratch on most of the trees in the Dragon Isles. Commander-rank lumberjacks with warrior-class skills for cutting were the norm there. Even in Drod, which was on the low side of the power spectrum for the Dragon Isles, the battle hadn't completely leveled the city. Not even the sprawl. The same could not be said of the Golden Divine Academy. It had been built with non-magical materials by human craftsmen decades ago, and then repurposed into the academy for the elites when the program started. Carl finally felt his scales and blood vessels reform while the last of the black mist solidified, allowing him to slowly get to his feet. He tried to step gently, as he had crushed a building when he landed, but the battlefield didn't look as bad as he had expected. Not entirely because of his own team's skills, though. The divine lightning hadn't cared about friend or foe, and the majority of the crabs had been scorched to death when it landed. Ray had managed to dodge the strikes easily enough, and Hawk had simply flown away when the storm started, so he wasn't directly under the clouds. Black clouds meant rain, and he was not about to willingly subject himself to that. Carl shook out his wings, getting rid of the lingering tingle of regeneration as he surveyed the destruction. Everyone check in. 1 Remy, intact and healthy. I'm out of crabs. Turns out they don't actually make good mounts. Ray added. I'm good. Hawk agreed. That hurt. Kara complained as she finally got close enough to return to her space. What happened to you? Remy, come heal your sister, Carl asked, beginning to panic as he saw the still bleeding wounds on the Chaos Badger. It won't heal. Give it time and I will regenerate. That demigod cat's claws have the fundamental rule of order imbued into them. Order. If I'd have known that, I wouldn't have stuck around so long, Kara complained. That actually explained a lot. Order was anathema to a Chaos Badger, and the demigod had hit her with a targeted strike intended to be something that she could not easily recover from. Healing magic wouldn't fix it because it was intended to be an injury, and that was the proper order of things. Likewise, Kara's enhanced healing would not simply remove the lingering power from her body. Nothing that a myth could do would remove the power of a demigod so quickly. But when she had patched herself up, she could go see Matilda, and the dragon would help her along. The old lady was just a bit busy at the moment. It's not a total loss, though. We won. Carl consoled her. And now I know what demigods taste like. Kara agreed weakly. Carl focused on Kara's space and wrapped her in bandages, stopping the bleeding without magic, but leaving the badger looking like a mummy. All right, if the targets are gone, let's check for survivors. Carl instructed. The haint claw rattled in his mind. A strike of divine lightning had damaged the living weapon, sending it back into his mental space. But now that his mind was whole again, the haint claw was refreshed and ready to come back out. Carl thought hard about the places that the students should be hiding, and then realized that only half these buildings had existed when he had gone to school here. The changes from the upgraded awakening method had brought such a large influx of students that they had needed to massively increase the size of the Academy compound. Fortunately, Soulsight had no problem finding all the buried safe rooms. Someone had been stationed near the top of the stairs, and they were like a beacon, marking the survivors in the rubble. The teachers are in the trial grounds. They ran inside to hide when the cat attacked. It might be a bit before they come out. Ray explained. That was either brilliant or incredibly lucky. Nobody really knew what would happen if the trial ground was forcibly destroyed. They might simply be ejected, they could be obliterated along with it, or even tossed between the planes as Chaotic Zone imploded and the instance went inactive. Fortunately, they didn't have to learn today. If they're in the trial, they're fine. Check the areas that aren't safe rooms for survivors first. Remy, scatter the healing totems. We will need all that we can get. Carl pulled rubble away from the first of the safe rooms, and realized that these areas had previously been guarded by a totem rank barrier, the best that the Golden Dragon Nation could provide. They were truly impressive bastions of security by local standards, but the aftermath of the battle had shattered all the barriers, except the final layer inside the bunkers themselves. It had been just enough to keep them intact, so Carl opted not to force the door open. Instead, he simply tapped the rhythm of the national anthem on the door until the guard inside opened it. The door opened and Carl found himself facing Overlord Johann, a paladin from the GDN military who he had met more than once before, just not at the academy. Overlord, it's good to see you safe. The battle is over, but you will want to steel your stomach before seeing the aftermath. Carl greeted him quietly. How much survived? The paladin replied. At least some of the bunkers and the trial tower. The overlords who were on yard duty ran into the tower for safety at the end. It got bad. But if your people are all right, they can come outside. Or you can leave them there for safety and just unlock the door, so they don't suffocate with the barriers down. Carl suggested. The paladin gave him a grim smile. That final hit knocked out all the life support systems. They're buried under the academy, but it's possible that the blast blew out a transformer. I have some skills in that department, so I will call for a replacement and check the situation. If we can get power back online, then they're fine in the bunkers for weeks if needed. Carl shook his head. Come out and you'll understand. A replacement was called for, and the paladin came out of the bunker to stand atop the pile of rubble that used to be a dorm building. Gods, what happened? Johann gasped as he took in the scene. He could see it, but it was not an easy thing to accept. However, saving students came first. He would worry about the rest of the details later. First, I will check the power relays. Perhaps the other bunkers still have power. But when he began walking, his expression only got more concerned. This crater, it's over the access tunnels for the backup generator. I can't imagine that they survived that. Hopefully, the generator itself wasn't hit. Carl followed him through the rubble, then helped pull the remains of a small building off a metal hatch. Inside, the generator room was scorched and blackened, but as the paladin started flipping switches, he began to smile. The air feed and exhaust were crushed, so the diesel generator stalled. That's the soot you see inside the room. If we clear the rubble, it should start again. It also looks like the attack blew every circuit breaker, but I've reset them again, and they're not tripping, so the charge should be gone. Do you know what sort of attack hit this area? Johann asked. Indirect strike from divine lightning, similar to tribulation lightning. The crater over there was a deflected attack, probably from one of my golems. Sorry about that. The academy wasn't built for a mythic rank fist fight. Johann sighed. Nothing on this continent is. What happened? A concerted effort to get around Supreme Lady Matilda's defense of the planet. A group from the immortal realms broke through in multiple spots to cause chaos. It looks like we've got it back under control, but multiple locations suffered heavy damages. I don't know how they're all doing. Other myths from the Dragon Isles went to most of the fights to collect bounties on the edible beasts. Carl explained. That's brilliant. Even one of these crabs could cause dozens of breakthroughs once refined into potions. Johann realized. Oh, good point. I've gotten so used to thinking at the higher ranks that I forgot for a moment that they're also medicinal and not just tasty. Carl joked. The paladin chuckled. I can only imagine what mythic rank crab legs must taste like. Unfortunately, I doubt I'll make enough in my entire life to afford such a thing.
Ka laukit.
I will make some before I go. It will do wonders for the overlords with its dense nutrients and high energy content. But I've got the generator's vents cleared now. Go ahead and try to restart the power. Johann flipped the switch, then hit the starter button, and nothing. Manual start it is. Where is the crank handle? Ah, here, he muttered. The starter battery had exploded when the system overloaded, but once he started to crank the motor over with the strength of an overlord, the generator came right to life. The light in the generator room was still out, exploded by the residual charge, but Carl could hear the hum of machinery powering up, and the gentle rush of air from the other side of the mostly blocked access tunnel. It looks like it didn't completely collapse. There is still air circulation, and I can hear the climate control systems powering up. The bunkers are active again, so we don't need to worry too much about everyone suffocating, as long as we can get to them. Do you want me to use earth manipulation to clear the tunnel, and we can just walk to them and check? Carl offered. If you can, that would be perfect. There are actually underground classrooms and other facilities here, a whole backup academy in case of attack. However, nobody really expected the complex to take this level of damage. How far does the destruction extend above ground? Johann asked. Carl patted him gently on the shoulder, and the paladin sighed. That bad, is it? Carl nodded. I would say that there isn't a tree standing within 50 kilometers, but there might be a few lucky ones. The railroad tracks are certainly out of commission, and I seem to recall that the river took a direct hit, so you've likely got a new lake in the region. They really didn't want the academy to survive. Carl shook his head. They weren't even aiming at the academy. That's just the aftermath of the battle. Missed attacks, deflected skills, and my impact with the ground. If they had actually been aiming to destroy the academy, there wouldn't be survivors. Carl used earth manipulation to clear the tunnel and rebuild the damaged wall sections where Oathbreaker had detonated an explosive skill under a crab, and led the way through the tunnels. With the lights back on, it was easy to tell how bad of shape the tunnel was in, so he continued reinforcing the walls as they went. It was made of the same concrete as the Golden Dragon Nation's military bunkers, but that had only kept it marginally intact after the attacks. However, the sections closer to the bunkers were deeper, so that the students had somewhere to escape to in the event of a gas attack, as the toxins would either rise or settle. The first few bunkers are down here. There is a central hub leading to classrooms on much lower levels. Johann explained. Carl listened for movement and then nodded. Nobody seems to be in the classrooms, unless they're soundproofed. I hear people in the other tunnels. Your cars are that good? Carl laughed. I can hear your heart beating. It's a beast thing. The Beast Master Path really worked out well for you. But I hear that your wife is also a powerful woman. Johann noted, then stopped at one of the doors and tapped the same national anthem rhythm that Carl had used. The door opened, and an unfamiliar teacher poked their head out. Oh, Johann, it's you. Is the attack over? Or are you coming to update us on the situation? The power just came back online, he asked. We came to see if the power was back on in all the bunkers. The attack is nearly over, but the situation is not good on the surface. How bad is the condition of the bunker? The teacher shrugged. Some cracks in the ceiling, but otherwise solid. Everything is working again now that the power is on. All right, we will keep moving. Keep the students safe and in the bunkers for now. The teacher frowned. How long will it be before they can go back to their dorms? The bunkers are a bit crowded. There are no dorms. The surface level of the academy is completely annihilated. It was pure luck that the backup generator survived. We will stop and see if we can get main power back online, but I believe that some of the power lines are above ground, so we've likely got nothing coming from the grid. Johann explained. Oh, exactly. Just keep them in place, and we will come up with something. Carl went to the next bunker entrance, but this time there was tapping from inside the door, the national anthem, the same as before. But just to mess with the teacher on the other side, he answered with a random song. The door swung open and Sergeant Rita, no, now she was Major Rita, and Royal ranked, stomped out. Do you think that I don't know it's you? And why did you answer the test rhythm with La Vida Loca? Did you forget everything that you were taught? She demanded. Carl shrugged. It seemed like it would be more fun this way. Is everyone all right in your bunker? We got the power back on and ventilation, but the academy is totaled, so the students will be in there for a while. We're good. The mages shored up the bunker when it started to crumble. It's as good as new again. Now tell me, what did you do that made someone so mad?
Karl Laukit.
It's good to see you two. But what I did is a long story, and I have more bunkers to check. If yours is good, I will go check on the others first, then we can catch up. Rita let her drill instructor facade slip and smiled at Carl. You'll have to tell me how married life is treating you as well. I want all the details.
Karl winkt.
I will bring Dana over once she's finished her fight. She's got half the team with her. But they had a bigger mess to clean up than we did. While Rita and Carl joked, Johann moved along the tunnels toward the other bunkers. The lights were on the whole way, so the buried utilities hadn't been destroyed from the battle. Anything above ground hadn't fared as well, but the shockwaves mostly compacted the earth and dispersed, causing minimal damage to buried cables, but more to buried bunkers. "Carl, we need you over here. We've got a warped door," Johann called. "Be right there." "Sorry, Rita, it's time for me to run away. Keep the door closed for now. We don't need curious kids running around while we're not sure if all the attackers are gone." Carl replied, "Are you sure? I suspect that there is at least one random little girl running around."
Rita replied.
She had gone looking for Sybil, but hadn't found her. However, she had sensed Ray's aura in the rogue's room. "Actually, Sybil is not running amok. We put her in a separate space under the tender mercies of the Red Dragon Orphanage matrons until the crisis is over." Rita smirked. "Serves her right. Now go help the paladin. I assume you have a skill for opening doors." Carl was still laughing when he made it to Johann, who was giving him a strange look. "Rita was my advisor when I first arrived at the academy a few years back. But she said that I must have a talent for opening doors, and it made me laugh." Carl explained. Johann smirked. "Well, she wasn't totally wrong. The roof has caved in just enough that the door won't open. There is a secondary hatch, but it's in the ceiling and needs to be dug out for them to use it." Carl gave a dramatic wave, and the roof rearranged itself back into shape. Then the locks on the door disengaged, and it swung open to reveal a shocked teacher. "That was locked," he stammered. "I know, I unlocked it. How is everyone in your bunker? Is the power and life support back online properly?" Carl asked. "Yes, everything is back online. Are you an Earth mage sent in to help?" the teacher asked. "Not really. I have some Earth mage type skills, but I am not a mage. I was sent here to help, though. Elites need to stick together in times of trouble." Carl broke the teacher again. While Carl and Johann finished clearing bunkers and repairing tunnels, Dana and the mythic Black Dragon finished clearing out the frogs from the Beast God Temple. "That skill of yours, auto-parry, is absolutely brilliant." The Black Dragon congratulated Dana as she took a quick break to have a drink. "Thanks. Mages are underrated as melee combatants, but against these evil frogs, having blade skills really saves the day. But the fact that the golems get it as well makes the most difference." Dana agreed. "Would you consider staying on as a teacher here? The children are quite taken with you, and that fighting style would help them immensely when they try to mimic beastkin to blend in with the other species." Dana laughed. "As much fun as that sounds, it simply wouldn't be practical. Being soul-bonded to Carl means that there is never a slow moment in our lives, and the power level difference is too large for me to show them most of the requisite skills for my fighting style. Many of them can't even be used below royal or overlord rank. However, I have given copies of the best ones to the Blue Dragons, so if you ask nicely, they should be able to send you copies for your students." That wasn't the greatest concern. The skills would be obtained by those who needed them now that they were in the hands of the Blue Dragons. What mattered was that the children were going to cry when the pretty fox lady, as they were calling her, went away. Even after all these years, it didn't get easier to listen to young beasts crying when a new friend went away on a work assignment. "Tion, Opal, leave some of the frogs for the temple residents. They're hungry too," Dana warned. Tion gave Dana his best puppy eyes, and the mythic Black Dragon began to laugh at her. "He knows the true way of the beasts." The dragon joked. "That's not going to work on me. Don't you see all these adorable pouting expressions? Even if we're just mixing in a bit of frog with the regular meals for the young ones, they still worked hard to defend their home today."
Dana countered.
Tion relented, and motioned with a paw for the others to come out and start collecting the last of the frogs that hadn't made it to the temple's defensive lines. That gave everyone plenty of work to do, as most of the youngsters at the temple didn't know how to transform yet, so they had to do all the dragging in beast form. It was actually quite entertaining for Tion to see so many beasts his own size working together to drag frogs 10 times their size across the trampled ground to pile them for processing. "Do you have a lot of frogs?" One of the young clerics asked Tion as he used earth manipulation to help them stack bodies. Tion nodded happily, then yipped. Then he cleared his throat and tried again. This is our third set of frogs. We've been collecting lots of them for the restaurant. He tried. You don't speak out loud much, do you? That's all right. I know that divine foxes can speak when they practice. But 3 invasions worth of frogs is a lot. Are you sure that people won't get sick of them? The cleric replied. Tion shook his head. No, we will sell them to different people most of the time. The guild runs a stadium-sized arena with restaurants and vendor stands. That took a moment for the cleric to wrap his head around. The Darklight Host Guild operated a fighting arena. That part was simple. But it was one that served mythic rank meat as what? A concession snack? Were they expanded into the immortal realm? Honestly, most of it would not go to the arena, but to the tiny world so that they could feed the baby dragons well when they started hatching. Small ones needed lots of nutrition to grow up big and strong, and Button was eager to be a big sister. Or to have underlings to play with. Ray had given her a most wonderful underling today, a rogue who was incredible at hide and seek. But once the dragon eggs hatched, they would have so many more people to play with. While they were enjoying the aftermath of their battles, the other myths who had gathered in Drod for the bounty event of the century were rapidly stressing Tessa to her breaking point. Thor and the others had stepped up to help her deal with the paperwork, but once the city of Drod was cleared, the myths completely stopped taking the situation seriously and treated the whole thing as a chance to stock their respective alliances' freezers. The attackers weren't all frogs, but they were almost all wild beasts at the mythic rank, and that had proven to be the perfect opportunity for others to pick their options. So, they didn't stay to finish the job, they popped in and out, switching when they heard of something else that might be tasty. But worse than that, after the attack at the Golden Divine Academy had ended, Remy had sent back a bunch of mythic demons that Carl had recruited from somewhere, and they knew nothing about this world. So, they wanted answers to everything, and they kept flirting with Thor. The only upside to the whole thing was that if people weren't turning in the invading beasts for bounties, the Darklight Host didn't have to pay them. That was the deal, edible beasts for bounties. They had taken some beastkin and demons in, slaves who hadn't intended to end up here. Hopefully that was where the group that Remy had just sent back came from as well. But most of the bounties were for food. Take a break and I will handle the bounties for a while, Thor offered gently, when he noticed that Tessa was getting frustrated. No, I can finish out the bounties. We haven't seen a new portal opening update from Kara or Matilda in 15 minutes, so the problem should be nearly handled for the day, she countered, watching a group of mythic warriors who were getting increasingly drunk every time that they came back looking for an update on new beasts to hunt. No new invasion locations in 15 minutes. It looks like Matilda has things under control for a moment. Everyone, pick a portal and finish out the day. This might be your last chance for bounties and loot. Tessa shouted over the noise of the crowd. That sent the drunks running for a portal along with most of the others who were taking a break between fights. Finally, some peace and quiet. All over the world, the aftermath of the portals from the immortal realms had left nations in chaos and cities razed. Only one portal had not started in or near a nation's capital, the attack that had targeted the academy. Mistakenly, Oobleck had thought that the dense population of more powerful beings had meant that it was something akin to a royal palace, a compound where the elites of this mortal world gathered, while the capital itself had barely registered. Common rank humans had no detectable presence to an immortal. Though there were 1 million people in the city, to the immortals that felt no different from a colony of ants, which were also technically 1 million common rank lives. The level of destruction was not as bad in the Dragon Isles as it was elsewhere, but they had suffered the vast majority of the attacks, as the invaders had sought to weaken the planet's defenses by eliminating what they thought were the young and promising breeding stock, while their strongest leaders dealt with the planet's few powerful defenders. To say that Azoth was in a bad mood was an understatement. He had been sleeping when the attacks began, and Matilda had roused him from bed with a foghorn, only seconds before he was attacked by an immortal rank octopus in his own home. His mansion was demolished, Sholaha was a mess, and while there were more than enough mythic rank warriors to defend the city from the invaders, The attack had been comprised of a form of thunder eels, so the entire city smelled like fish guts at the moment. Not that he was still there. Kisdila, the capital of Nulnulgat, had also suffered an attack led by an immortal, and he had left immediately after his battle to reinforce them. The Darklight host had sent teams to assist, but most of the ones who showed up were either drunk or intent on filling their fridge, and only gave the slightest consideration to not tearing down the city around them as they fought. At least that one had been frogs. Lord Bomgan had been rescued by the dwarves of Zararag, who surprisingly honored an ancient agreement with the undead lord when he called for aid. They had also prevailed, but the battle there had been against cockroaches, and even Lord Bomgan had been so disgusted by the aftermath that he had declined to use them to expand his army any more than was necessary to ensure his own capital's security. Undead cockroaches were a plague that not even he wanted to unleash on the world. The only ones who didn't seem to be upset about the invasion were the dark elves and priestesses of Iesoxi, who had been invaded by spiders. The irony was not lost on anyone that the largest city in Nerid, home to 500,000 of the spider goddess's followers, had been invaded by an octopus leading an army of spiders. The beasts had immediately turned on their former masters when the beloved of the spider goddess beseeched them to know their true allies, that had left the invading immortal helpless before the might of their own army, and restrained from leaving by one of the Dragon Isle's few immortals. The Dark Elves were happy to see so many new species join their city, and with the assistance of the high priestesses, the slave collars of the Beastkin officers leading the assault were quickly destroyed after they had been rendered ineffective using the same technique that Remy had. Only they used a bit of arachnid flair to accomplish the task. Steel silk spiders at the mythic rank had quickly woven cloth to protect the wearer's neck joint, and then the collars had been disenchanted by the priestesses. The needles couldn't puncture the silk, and the collars were easily removed with brute force after the enchantments were gone. While the direct damage done by the attack from the immortal realm was severe, and the targeted locations would need extensive rebuilding to call themselves intact cities again, that was not the largest or most lasting damage done by the invasion. When a portal was opened between two realms, the natural laws immediately tried to balance the two sides. Like water under pressure, high-density mana tried to force its way through into the lower-density side. More mana was always a welcome addition to the world, but the mana of the immortal realm and the mortal realm were not the same. There were fundamental differences beyond the density. The mana of the immortal realms carried a hint of divinity, and the mana itself was of an entirely different nature. While the mana of the mortal realms often carried a touch of elemental affinity lingering from past spell effects, the mana of the immortal realm carried the aftereffects of fundamental rules. As Karl understood it, knowledge of a fundamental rule to an acceptable degree was a necessary condition of reaching immortality. It was the difference between the creatures like Ublek, who were immortal beasts, and the frogs, who were nominally only one step beneath him in rank but worlds apart in power. There was something else as well, but it was something that Karl simply couldn't put his finger on. A power that he was either totally incompatible with, or simply lacked any ability to identify. And that was a rare thing given all the sensory upgrades that he had received along the way. But the mana of the immortal realm was insidious. It didn't just dissipate into the atmosphere. It soaked into everything that it touched. Karl could feel it in his own body, trying to reform him. He could feel it in the plants, altering their structure from common foliage into magical resources. The level of change was small, with the limited immortal realm mana available, but the altered plants also gave off hints of immortal realm mana now, permanently changing the atmosphere of the Golden Dragon Nation. At first, Karl didn't notice or mind, but after he saw the first lower-rank students coming out of the trial tower, he realized that this was going to be an issue. Their bodies were not able to process that mana. It was poison to their system, a poison that the demons and others he recruited had needed to take medicine to adapt to. Poison meant that this was Remy's time to shine. She had been working on analyzing and recreating the potion, hoping that it would contain the answers to advancing others to the mythic rank more quickly. Without understanding a fundamental rule, and a large dose of immortal realm or divine energy, that was where they would remain, but in this mortal world, nobody could complain about being mythic ranked and standing near the peak. I've got enough to make an antidote to the mana poisoning. It will push them slowly upward, So warn the teachers that royal rank students will be regular events now. But it might also make some of the overlords advance. The overlords were doing fine handling the change on their own. Carl didn't sense any poisoning from them. But the effects on the awakened rank students who had been in the trial tower were immediate, and the children were too traumatized by the destruction of the academy to do much about it on their own. Half of them still thought that they were in the trial because they had come out, and everything they expected to see was gone. I have an antidote coming for the mana poisoning. Someone will have to give the recipe to all the other targets on this continent that were attacked, but it should prevent any secondary casualties. Technically, the mana poisoning is unlikely to actually kill them, but it's not going to be pleasant, especially for the humans. Most species can adapt easily enough and gain a rank, but the humans can't do that without help.
Karl explained to Johann.
Remy quickly finished a whole batch of the mana adaptation potion, and then sent a memo to her acolytes to make a lot more of it. The ingredients were abundant in the tiny world and her own space, so they had them on hand. But the potion would seem more like a snake oil scam to the vast majority of users. It wasn't an immediate advancement, only an increase in your ability to adapt to higher mana levels. So, it would cure the mana sickness of the common and awakened rank students, while having only a slow but cumulative effect on everyone else. Carl handed the bulk potion to Johann and gestured to the students. Give each of them a single spoonful of the potion, and they should start to adapt to the mana in the area. It will fade with time, I believe, but for now, they're going to need treatment, as the plants are inundated with immortal realm mana. The paladin nodded. So, it's similar to radiation poisoning? It lingers in the plants and soil, and those who cannot stand the radiation get sick, while those with stronger regeneration are fine. Carl nodded. That's exactly it, but I don't quite understand how your mind went there. Johann chuckled. We came across a highly radioactive area with trolls living in it. Anything else that came close began to blister from the radiation, but the trolls were fine, they just healed like humans. It was their perfect safe space, but the problem was that they were still radioactive when they went out to forage for food. Carl nodded. And a radioactive troll in a water supply is bad news. Johann paused for a moment as he decided the best way to solve this issue, then took out a small chemistry class beaker from his inventory. All students, please line up. We have medicine for the treatment of the aftereffects of the attack. The invaders left a mild toxin on the area, and we are working to inoculate you all against it. It's a bit of a rush job, but I will get through you all as fast as I can, he explained. The students laughed as he dipped the beaker into the cauldron and used it like a shot glass for the students, but nobody said anything to the paladin. They were already starting to feel the effects of the mana, making them dizzy and nauseous. Carl didn't know if that would pass as they adapted, but he assumed it would with how low the levels of Immortal Realm mana were. Teachers, you should be fine without it, but I will give you a dose anyhow. Once you have it, please bring the separated portions and a shot glass to each bunker. The students there will be affected, though not as quickly as those on the surface. Carl instructed, as he made a collection of stone cauldrons and shot glasses. He could have made buckets, but it was an alchemy potion, it just wouldn't be right to package it up like leftover soup, and the regular potion bottles were a terrible size for the purpose. Not even a lid? One of the teachers complained as Carl filled the cauldrons. Just put it in your inventory. No risk of spillage that way. But I suppose I could make a lid for the cauldrons. The teacher waved his hand dismissively and put away the cauldron. No worries, whatever is left over I will bring back. Should I just give it to certain ranks? Carl shook his head. Give it to everyone. Even if it doesn't help much, it won't hurt. The teacher laughed. Carl had a good point. Preventative medicine was a very valid theory, and if this one wasn't difficult to make, they could just give it to everyone. What he couldn't know was that it was actually intended to help their growth rate when they were exposed to higher quality mana, and that Remy intended to give it to all sorts of people just to see what happened. The alchemists at the guild house were already mixing it in drinks included with relief supplies, so that the residents of Drod that lived outside the walls, those lowest on the power charts, got treated without making a scene. The medicinal juice was going out to everyone in town, but special efforts we made to make sure it made it outside the walls, as those people couldn't easily come to the guild house. The wall was damaged, and the gates were blocked. Carl looked around the ruins of the academy as the teachers rushed off to get medicine to the bunkers. Well, I suppose that I should likely get to work. A good portion of this can be rebuilt, but we will need some of the other elites to come back and add spells to make it what it was. He decided. Make a water mage punishment course. Hawk suggested. Don't worry, we will have training courses for everyone. The new mages will all do well to learn to work around your defenses.
Karl Laukit.
But the training courses were only a small part of the whole academy. The classrooms were going to be easy, as they were largely non-magical to start with. Even if he just waved a hand and rebuilt a building, it would be halfway to functional. Once someone came along and put in the rest of the little details like lights and furniture, it would be up and running. However, it wouldn't take much to make the academy better than ever, even if Opal was off with Dana, helping with the defense of the Beast God Temple. You have a look on your face that says you're planning to do something that is either a war crime or an epic practical joke. Rita's voice declared from behind Carl as he was mentally planning the new layout for the academy. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Carl agreed. What is it that you're thinking of? She asked curiously. I have the magic to rebuild the academy, at least to a somewhat decent standard, like I did with the trial tower, but for the whole academy. It might take some time, but I should be able to reconstruct the academy to a standard high enough to train students. With the teachers that we have here, I should also be able to work in the essential spells to make it self-supporting. Mostly, it's just the nutrition part that I have zero compatibility with. Carl explained. Food? I can make food. Seaweed is delicious. Leo announced in his slow drawl. That was right, he was gravity and nature element. But when Carl focused on the skills that the turtle had, there was nothing like plant growth or ocean feast. It was just a simple spell, create seaweed, which could create a dozen different varieties. The turtle waved a flipper. It's fine. Just ask one of the clerics for some spices, and I'm sure humans will like it too. Thor thought that the turtle had a point. The seaweed looked pretty good. But maybe if you wrapped it around rice and beans like those cakes that they fed to the horses at the temple. That could be even better. Dried so it's crunchy. Leo agreed. Now, it actually sounded like something that humans would eat. You seriously think that you can fully rebuild the academy? Rita verified. Of course, you don't get to mythic rank without having a few tricks up your sleeves. But I also have a crafting-related trade skill. Making things is my specialty. Plus, I can call Tion and Opal back here so that they can assist with their earth manipulation and illusionary domain abilities. When you build those spells into a building, you can do wonderful things. Carl agreed. Like the storage closet next to your old room. It's an illusionary domain and nearly a full acre of space inside. Though that one was designed as a large field, so it wasn't for anyone. This year, there was actually someone in it because of the lack of space. A druid girl ended up with it because she stopped to play with the earth mice, so she was the last to arrive. Rita replied while trying not to laugh. That girl would have made a good nature cleric. Hopefully, she wasn't in her room ignoring the alarm and ditching class during the attack. All right, I will check on the others and then we can design a new academy. Perhaps something cool. Carl suggested. Ray appeared beside them, carrying Sybil on her hip like a toddler. The baby rogue had never grown much, and still stood under 150 centimeters tall. So, compared to Ray's tall and lanky form, she really did look like the child that she was. Did I hear we're making something cool? I'm all about that. Let me design some of the rooms. She insisted. Sybil nodded happily. The real rogues need some better training courses. I spend as much time as possible in the trial tower, but it's not a specialty training area just for my class. Rita gave her a suspicious look. Why does it sound like you did find a specialized training course? And why are you out of the bunkers? Sybil shrugged. Ray has one in Carl's tiny world. But I was moved there for safety when the fight started, so there was no need to go to the bunker. Rita motioned for an explanation, so Carl opened the world, with the destination being the top of the Nap platform in the mountains. It was currently occupied by a sleepy blue dragon, who smiled up at them when Carl led the former drill instructor through. "Good morning. This fine lady was my first tutor after I gained access to the system," he explained. The dragon transformed into a young man with shockingly blue eyes. "You can call me Librarian Ike. I am here to teach the baby dragons who are about to hatch, and to make a recording of everything that happens during their childhood years." Rita nodded politely and shook the dragon's hand. "Major Rita of the Golden Dragon Nation. I would say of the Golden Divine Academy, but it's currently in ruins." The dragon nodded. "So I hear. The Carl will do well enough as a repairman, though. He made all of this, the entire tiny world is his work. Except the living things, that is." Rita stood near the edge of the cliff and stared in wonder at the scene beneath her. If Carl could do all of this, what was a measly academy? Even if he didn't know how to make their training equipment, what he did know how to make would probably do a better job of it. But why were so many of the people naked? The teacher glared at Carl, who turned his attention to where she was watching. "Oh, those ladies are off duty today. The beach is the common gathering point for the resident druids and nature clerics. If you've ever tried keeping clothes on a nature cleric, you will know that it's a lost cause, so I don't try. The only ones who do try are the male dragons," he explained. Ike laughed and nodded. "The ladies are refreshingly honest, but we are seriously outnumbered in here. I would never get all my work done if I indulged all their whims. We've already lost Oben." Carl chuckled at the blue dragon's description of the situation. "Speaking of duties, can I get a create food spell from you? I recently bonded with a false island flying turtle, and he's got compatibility with the nature element." The blue dragon nodded and handed Carl a thin book. Create food was the most common grade of the food creation spells, and only made rice and beans or oatmeal. It was far from perfect, but it was only 3 pages as a skill book, so every blue dragon carried around a stack of them, just in case they found potential cleric recruits. Carl learned the skill and Leo cheered from his space. Now he could make side dishes to go with his seaweed. "Thank you. He greatly appreciates it. It will also help with my rebuilding efforts. The Golden Divine Academy needs some renovations once Opal and Tion return, so I plan to build some food creation spells directly into the new kitchen," he explained. "Oh, that's a great idea. You should ask the druids at the Drod Guildhouse, though. They've got better versions already carved into nature stones. A most curious thing that you don't see many Orcish druids," Ike suggested. "Right? I forgot that they could make those." The dragon gave a full-throated laugh. "They sell them at the guild store, a few dozen a week."
Carl schrugged.
He hardly paid attention to the inventory at the store these days. There was just so much else going on that the store mattered more to the residents of Drod than it did to him, especially today after the attacks. Carl mentally checked the guild store and poached 2 royal-ranked, advanced food creation stones, then checked in with the guild. "How are things in Drod? We're almost done with the attacks here, and now it's all aftermath," Carl asked Mick, as the vampire was the least likely to be swamped with work at the moment. "We're doing all right. Almost all of the crafters are out right now. They are mostly from classes with healing skills, so they're on rescue teams. The dwarves from Burra have come to offer assistance in rebuilding the city, and we've got them housed in the crafting cavern, near the forges where they're comfortable. Other than that, we're just short on all sorts of potions, but the alchemists are busy with the mana poisoning potion. Making 100,000 doses is a lot. We've sold out of everything that was on the shelves, and we've got a huge list of orders for necessities when we can make them. That will make the crafters happy, except that all the myths realize the Darklight host has an actual store here, so they've been bothering Sapphire for the good stuff. I think that the old lady is going to eat someone soon. You know how it is when myths suddenly come into money. They immediately buy a shiny new toy," she explained. Yes, that sounded like exactly what they would do, especially as they had been drinking all day as they fought. Drunken impulse buys when you had a pocket full of cash in a lower-cost city were nearly irresistible. "How is the guild doing for money?" Carl asked. "We're all right. The mythic beasts didn't have any special attributes, so they weren't individually expensive. With the money that we've paid out for the meat, we lost over a month of revenue, but we're still doing all right," Mick replied happily. The mythic rank visitors had already started to barbecue the frogs out in front of the guild house, ones that they hadn't sold to the Darklight host, and she had managed to sneak a shredded frog barbecue sandwich earlier. The energy levels in the food were crazy, and she could feel her body's innate power level improving, even after she had taken the potion to avoid mana poisoning. It wasn't common knowledge that the potion actually increased your affinity for new mana, instead of blocking it to prevent poisoning, so the situation was completely unexpected to Mick and many others. "Anything else important happen?" Carl asked. "They learned about the crafting cave. It's pretty busy in there now, but we've got it under control. The Guild Alliance leaders are holding a meeting at the tavern in the cavern, and I think they'll be spending the night, but the rest mostly just went in to make custom orders with one of the master craftsmen. The market is pretty empty as well, even the spices sold out. Thor sent over some new spices and veggies from either his space or the tiny world, but stock is going as fast as they can set it out." That made sense. Who could tell what flavors of mythic frog would be best? "Sounds like you have it under control. You are welcome to break out the good dwarven ale for the day's more important visitors. The stuff that the inn usually keeps out front is good, but not guild leader good, if you know what I mean. I'm not sure if the constructs will do it on their own." Carl added. "Oh, that's no problem. They listen to Naksha, and she's been keeping order in here since the fighting stopped. The death energy made her dizzy, so she couldn't do much but yell at people and absorb it. From the sound of it, they were going to have a bunch of totem-ranked members soon." So Carl targeted others with his guild message. "Dave, Raj, Hugo, we need overlords to Drod City. Tell them to get a shot of the mana poisoning potion and then help with the cleanup. The lingering immortal realm mana will help push them toward totem rank. The myths won't really notice it, but if we have overlords near the bottleneck, they might advance with just a few days of recovery work in the city. I will ask the Darklight host to put them up overnight, so they don't have to take the portal home." Then he relayed the information to Mick, Tessa, and Naksha, who should all be around the guild house. "Got it. We have room for them in the crafting cavern. Most of the others are bunking with locals in the Stone Chapel district, so we're not too crowded. Nobody seems to be rushing to get back to Xylaz today," Tessa replied. If Carl's guess was right, Ophelia and Lotus should be in the Redwood Sprawl right now, doing the healing tree routine and making dinner for the homeless. That was their usual disaster response, and the sprawl would be intense with immortal realm mana. It was no loss for them to remain across town. Once he was finished talking to the guild, Carl pocketed the 2 stones he had recovered, and then focused on Rita, who was holding up a map of the academy in front of him. "You aren't going to make all the students learn new routes to class, are you?" she asked. 100%, yes he is," Ray replied before Carl could speak. She didn't like the current design. It looked like someone was coffee drunk when they spun their web. It definitely needed fixing. Rita sighed. "Why did I even think that you could make things easy and rebuild the old academy the way it was?" Ray used her free hand to pat her on the head. "It's all right, we all make mistakes. Are you going to put my student down?" "No." Ray was using Carl's trick for transferring mana to flood Sybil with Immortal Realm enhanced mana, trying to force her to advance again before she had to leave. Technically, the rogue should be able to graduate, but she had entered the academy early, and she was honestly still too young to be sent out on her own into the world. She was powerful and an incredibly skilled assassin, but the Inquisition had marked her for recruitment once she was a little more grown. They recognized her skill, but the elders of the church had decided it would be exploitative to recruit a child so young, even if Carl and Dana had only been 2 years older when they left the academy. Ray blamed Sybil's size. Nobody took her seriously when she was so small. It was an advantage in infiltration missions, but when she was trying to convince others to send her on those missions, it was only a hindrance. However, Ray had a plan for that. She would work with Sybil on regeneration and disguise skills so that she could more easily play the role of the orphan waif, the flustered student and the trainee servant with no sense of direction. Almost excellent ways to blend in with her surroundings on urban missions for the Inquisition. And by the time that Sybil realized that she had stopped aging, her role would already be set. The only other one that they had who could potentially do stealth infiltration in that manner was, never mind. Neither Kara nor Tion would be any good at infiltration. Kara would end up robbing everyone just to see what they had, and Tion was too adorable to be unobtrusive. Ray reached into her space and set out a map, with a whole campus complex built around a central structure. Originally, it was designed to be around a spider goddess temple, but putting it around the trial tower in the same spiderweb pattern would work just as well. The goddess approved of the tower. This is my plan for the new academy. See, there are open-air training grounds, indoor training areas, classrooms, and dorms. I even left specific spots for torturing water mages and disassembling armored cars. Ray announced proudly. Why those two things in particular? Rita sighed. They're our favorite training methods.
Rito nodded slowly.
We will have to bring this to the headmaster and the others before you get started. They will have the final say on whether or not the design gets approved. Ray gave her a sly smile. Or, I could just have the Carl start building it, then ask for forgiveness later. A wise person told me it's easier to get forgiveness than permission. Rita glared at Carl, who shrugged. That's probably not my fault. Her expression didn't change, but Carl couldn't blame her. Telling her that he didn't bother waiting for apologies and just left someone else to deal with the aftermath once he was finished doing what he needed to do most likely wouldn't help his case. Rita took out her phone, then frowned when she realized that it was completely dead. EMP from the divine lightning attacks. The generator needed to be reset as well. Johann informed her as he strolled over with an empty cauldron. Damn. Alright, I need to go find the headmaster. Carl has plans to rebuild the academy in a new layout, and I'm not letting my name be anywhere on that paperwork. She insisted. I will help you find him. Ray and Carl laughed as the two elites took off, running from any chance of responsibility. But they had left so fast that they hadn't even waited for him to say that he could see the headmaster over by the tower. So, when Carl simply opened a portal and stepped through with Ray, the two elites arrived to find that Carl was already with the headmaster. Damn it! How did you even get here? Rita asked. Portal. But I can run faster than you can as well. You should have gone to look for him somewhere that he wasn't. The headmaster shook his head in dismay. If this is how you treat your friends, I wouldn't want to be your enemy. Now, what was it that everyone needed to tell me? We have plans to remake the academy in a more organized pattern. All we need is your approval, and I can get started on the reconstruction. Carl suggested. Let me see the plans. If it's suitable, I don't have any objections to letting you redesign the academy's layout. The trial tower is a wonder, and the students would surely appreciate more of your special flair in their academy life. Ray smiled at Sybil. You hear that? He's going to let us add all the good things to the new academy design. Oh, this will be so much fun. I've got big plans for the rogue training grounds. She was going to have a wonderful time designing new training programs. Whether the rogues could survive Ray's trials without a safety mechanism and healing spells was a completely different issue. Carl handed over Ray's design to the headmaster, who glanced at them, then immediately turned his attention to Ray. You do know that this is the Golden Dragon Nation, not the Spider Goddess Nation, right? He asked. Ray nodded. It's no problem. Your dragon gods and my spider goddess get along just fine. I'm sure that they won't mind that the spider web is more efficient than your randomly placed clusters of buildings. More administrators came over and began making copies of Ray's design, while adding markings and notations. Originally, Ray had decided what went where entirely in her head. There were no notes on the blueprint. But now there were marks for what went in each classroom, which dorm held what students, and then pages and pages of side notes on what the academy staff would like to see added to the various facilities. It was definitely not a short list, either. Part of it was that they wanted to keep the different sorts of dorm rooms intact, along with the unique advantages and drawbacks so that students could choose and learn the value of compromise. Some of the drawbacks were only a major issue if your neighbors were obnoxious, like the walls that transmitted the sound of training. But others were a constant annoyance, which could be mitigated with a change in behavior. To the academy, both sorts were a test of mental fortitude and character, a measure of how well the trainee elites could handle stress and overcome adversity. Similarly, the rewards were a test of discretion, one that Carl had failed brilliantly, All of the supposedly hidden features of the room had been quickly revealed not just to his tutor, but also to Dana, who spent more nights in his room than her own. Sybil had at least attempted to keep the curtains closed and pretend that the garden outside didn't exist when the teachers came in to speak with her. But Sybil also didn't have a Dana-equivalent friend. That all the teachers suspected was actually a friend with benefits. Carl had no idea that his reputation was so thoroughly unwholesome back at the academy, or that he was considered a living legend among the boys of the current generation. The one who had been the fastest ever to advance to commander rank, who had graduated early to work on the most classified of projects before saving the nation in public fashion, and who had done it all with the campus beauty at his side. It was so utterly unfair that the new generation of elites in training could only dream of being him. The number of small changes that the teachers were making continued to increase until finally Ray decided that she had enough. They were losing track of her vision, wanting to move buildings into unsuitable spots, and it was time to put an end to their nonsense. "All right, I see what you want out of the buildings. We will make it all work. Don't worry too much about it. Even if it doesn't look like it will fit where I put it, it will," she insisted. Everyone turned to Carl for an explanation, as it was clear that Ray was not about to give one. "We can use illusionary domain and reality warp to create expanded study areas and altered room geometry. It's a bit challenging to describe until you have seen it in action, but I assure you that Ray is correct. This design will work with your requests," he offered. That wasn't totally convincing, but he was the one that had all the power, so if he was going to rebuild them an academy to replace the one they lost, then they would shut up and accept it. If it wasn't enough, they would expand upon the initial design later. That part was probably inevitable. The population of the Golden Dragon Nation was growing, and an increasing number of students were coming to the academy every year. So, unless they built a second facility, they would eventually need an even larger capacity school. "We should make lots of extra dorms. One huge pack is stronger than two small ones," Thor suggested. "Oh, a high-rise condo, like we had in the capital," Remy agreed. "Like coconuts on a palm tree?" Leo asked, unfamiliar with the concept. "No, there are people all the way up, not just at the top." That could be fun. Like stacking rocks really high." Ray quickly altered a few things in her plan, then nodded. "We can make it work with up to 10 stories of dorm rooms. Or we can do more and use illusions for the levels so the outside only looks like 10. The beasts did the mental calculations, and then realized that all the existing buildings here were 4 stories or shorter. Well, they had been before Carl squished them. But that meant going to 10 stories would already double capacity, even without adding any new dorm buildings. But Ray's plan also had many more buildings than the old layout, and they were much more efficiently designed, with connecting walkways to complete the spiderweb pattern. This would be much more efficient, but it was also a security measure, as they could lock down the walkways with illusionary domain and make intruders fight their way through ever-increasingly creative scenarios to move between buildings. It was going to be so much fun. "Where do we start?" Rita asked, ignoring the disturbing feeling that she got when she saw Ray silently plotting her next move. "The first steps are to clean up, and then I suppose that we can work our way out from the tower." "Ray, do all the bunker entrances line up with a building?" Carl replied. Ray shook her head. "No, some of them are in silly spots, but once we clean up, we can fix them. Having the bunkers not be directly under the buildings will make it easier for some of them to get back out again if they have another incident." Rita nodded in agreement. With so many of the bunkers buried under rubble today, it would have actually been better if some of them hadn't been directly under the buildings, and the exits were more easily accessible from an open area. The only reason that it had been so easy to find them all was because Carl could repair the tunnels after they got the power back online. But it wasn't wise to count on that being true the second time. The headmaster smirked as he watched Rita's expressions cycle from concern to horror, and finally to acceptance. "All right, we will trust the Lady Ray to design a safe and efficient layout."